Hey everybody, it's Strict9 with Strict9 GP, and welcome to another episode of my Out of the Park Baseball 20 playthrough with the Phillies. And this episode's going to be a little different than what I had planned, and you can probably tell from the screen that I'm on. The goal was, of course, to sim offline until we got to that deciding game of the World Series, and then come back and play out that game in the 3D mode. But it didn't happen that way, and the reason it didn't is it just became apparent as I was playing out. I played out like the first three games, and it just became really apparent that the Phillies were not going to get the offense they needed to win the series. Um, in terms of the way it turned out, we lost 4 games to 2 to Seattle, and it's bittersweet because we made it to the World Series, but Seattle had a great offensive team, but man, their pitching was really mediocre. They had one legitimate number one, number two type starter on their team, and then the rest of the staff was really like 2.5 star rated. Our pitching staff was better, of course, on paper, but they performed well. I mean, the pitching kept us in it, but our offense was terrible. We were shut out 2 games, lost 3-0, I think, in 2 games. The only 2 games we won were just these long, drawn-out extra innings. One of them went 16 innings, the other was like 12, and they were low-scoring games. And we were hammered in one game, lost 15-2. So it kind of, it raised a point with me with the way I play out these games. Sometimes uh, maybe it sounds like sour grapes, hopefully not. But the thing about when you're playing out the games, I love the presentation. I love all the options you have in that 3D view. I think the player animation is really cool, how they've upgraded that. But I prefer playing in a one-pitch mode, and you're kind of limited when you're playing that way in the kind of strategy you can do offensively and even defensively, I guess, to a certain point. But if you play out pitch by pitch, the games just take so long. So there's kind of like, I wish there was maybe a happy medium between those two. But I think when you've got a team that's struggling offensively, you're limited with your strategy when you're doing a one pitch mode because you can only update your strategy based on what that final pitch count's going to be. When that final pitch happens, if that makes sense. And maybe that would have helped me out because our hitters weren't struggling. I could have been more aggressive on the base paths if I was able to see like some better, see what the counts were and when they got into our favor, for stealing or running aggressively or hitting run, running hit, all those kind of things. So, long story short, I was a little bit kind of frustrated with how we were playing. I simmed it out and, you know, with the intention of if we started making a run at it, I would come back and play out that last game. But uh, we just didn't get close. Even though we did manage those 2 wins, I don't think it was really in doubt the way our offense was playing. It was just a matter of time before Seattle clinched, and that's what they did, 4-2. But moving on, I'm still pretty happy with the season that we had. I think there's a lot of good things with this team still, especially that pitching staff, that we can repeat back into the World Series. That's going to be the goal. And this episode, I'm just going to recap the season, look at some awards. We had a couple that were pretty nice, and then get started on free agency and look at how the team is going to look after arbitration and some of the holes we're going to have to fill. But I'll start off first thing with the end of season awards, and starting with the Gold Gloves in the American League. A lot of new guys here for me. I've noticed that, of course, in the last several episodes when we get to the off-season awards. So the American League, won't focus too much on that. In the National League, we did get an award here for Zach Thompson. He was Gold Glove winner at pitcher, and I thought that was kind of cool. Wally Kuhn, a third baseman, now with the Mets. This guy has racked up, I think that's 10 Gold Gloves in his career. Great career from this guy. Offensively, at times, he's been really good. He's never won MVP or anything, but solid career from him. And looks like he's a 3-star player with another couple years on his contract. So yeah, he might have some good final numbers. And then for relievers of the year, I went with two Menares, kind of a young guy in the American League, but Andy Padgett, a former Philly, has kind of turned his career around. I traded this guy away because he was just never really all that consistent with us. See, the last season he was with us, he had a 7.58 ERA, but he's kind of developed as a closer with a couple teams here, Arizona and Boston, and last year got some picks for that reliever of the year. He's turned into a pretty nice looking reliever there. But in the National League, finally went to Mendoza. Well deserved. 50 saves, led all of baseball. Had easily his best year. I was glad to see him finally get that award. Top sluggers, this is the Platinum Stick Awards. Josh Gordon in the American League, first season with Chicago White Sox. His power production was down, but man, he had one of his best overall seasons of his career. I think in terms of wins above replacement, it was tied for his best season, but just really consistent, over 200 hits, high average. This guy is, man, I hated to see him go for sure. He's a definitely great player. And then Myers was a guy who hammered us quite a bit in the playoffs with Seattle. He's a former MVP. Had a really solid year from him. In the National League, we had no Phillies showing up here. Arizona had a few. Arizona had a really good season last year. I'm surprised how easily we were able to, we swept them in the National League Division Series. One thing of note, Brandon Kinsler won another award. This guy's just full of awards. I think he's finally getting to the tail end of his career. His rating's now just to 3.5 stars, but he had another good year. He just will not stop playing, and I think he's got one more year in that contract with Atlanta. I don't know how long he'll play. He's got a potential if he plays another 2-3 years to get to 700 home runs, for instance. He's already over 100 wins above replacement for his career. First ballot Hall of Famer for sure. And then Rookies of the Year, this is where it gets a little bit disappointing. There were some good picks, I guess. Looked like Cleveland has a good young team going in the American League. But it went to another pitcher. Didn't go to Thompson. Thompson got some votes. But in a lot of ways, I gotta respect this choice. Burnham is definitely rated better right now at this stage in his career. And he's just 22. This guy's going to be an amazing pitcher if he stays healthy. But he got the Rookie of the Year award. Vega was second. And, I think he had a subpar year. It wasn't all that great. I really think Thompson should have gotten second, in my opinion. But we did have two guys showing up there. And then Best Manager, this is really gets to be a surprise, too. Went to Peterson of Seattle in the American League. His first time winning that award, but he's been the manager at Seattle now for a lot of years. So I guess, well-deserved from him. But how about this? Chris Strychnine. Finally, we won the award in the National League. My first time ever winning that award. You could see, one of the best seasons the Phillies have ever had. It actually tied for the most wins by a Phillies team in franchise history. It was easily our best season. I wish we could have got just a little bit further and won that World Series. But in terms of the overall score, I hit over 1,000. I don't know if I've done that in any of these playthroughs I've done with these newer versions that keep track of that achievement score. That's pretty good, I think. Definitely the highest I've ever gotten. I think second, was like in the 700s. So easily my best year. So I'm happy to take that award. And then last awards here, we've got Pitchers of the Year in Cy Young. It went to Unzueta for Seattle, and this is the guy I was talking about. He was really their only good pitcher, and he's a 3-star pitcher. But Few names like Rocky Stromain didn't get it this year, mainly because of injury. I think he was lost the last month of the season. He may have probably uh, made a better run for it if he was there the full season. I don't see anybody here that I recognize too much. And then in the National League, easily this guy, Jerry Stanley, had one of the best pitching performances I've seen in a while. Led in wins, innings, wins above replacement. He also um, won the MVP in the National League. We did have a couple Phillies, Mendoza, Barbarossa getting votes here, but San Francisco, they have a couple guys here at the top that are really good. Even Shettle, who is 28 years old, been around for several years. He had a really amazing year, 177 ERA. Could have easily gone to him, I think, for Cy Young. And then American League MVP went to new guy Jorge Magana. Kind of a surprise, just his second full season in the majors. Led the league in runs with 145, 8.4 wins above replacement. A solid year, but I wouldn't say a dominant type year. Gordon got some votes there. Jonathan Medina, he's been around in this league, I think, for a while, 35 years old. He had a good year. And then, like I say, it went to that pitcher in the National League. Arizona had several guys getting votes. Suzuki, third place. Kinsler got some votes. And then for the Phillies, Sean Riggs got a vote. And there's some story on Riggs I'll have to tell you. He was really cold in the postseason. I'm not sure about this guy. He's a free agent this season. I may just have to let him go. I'm not going to give him $20+ million a year, which is what he's looking for, I think. But I would still like to have him back in the lineup at least for one more year. But he had an option, and he voided that last year of his contract. So that's how the offseason or the after season went with the awards. Taking a look at salary arbitration, we have a few things here with free agency and salary arbitration to look at. I'm basically keeping every pitcher who's coming up, except not except. I'm keeping every pitcher. I think, especially like Scott, Condeshera, DeCluet. I like Contreras, even though he may not be. If McAfee comes back healthy, he might not get to be a starter this year. I think this guy's ratings are still good. I think he's at least a fifth starter on most teams in this league. Still young. Hopefully he stays healthy. And then Barbarossa, coming off that 18-win season, still just a 3-star pitcher. I think he's good for maybe another year or two, and I'm okay paying him 3.8. I have a feeling it's probably going to be higher than that when arbitration comes through. Millspaw guy I traded for, I think, last offseason. He was disappointing. I'm letting him go. He was probably going to expect $2 million or more. He's not worth it. And then a guy I hate to see go in some ways, but I just don't have room for him. He's too much of a platoon type player. After having a fairly good season in 2039, last year was disappointing. I don't really have a place for this guy. And tried to trade him, and no good trade offers came through, so I'm going to let him go. He was probably going to get $6 million or so in arbitration, and really with Warlick, who came through a trade with the Cubs, he's going to be the starting right fielder. I think I'm going to, even though there's some platoon issues with him against lefties, I think he's going to get majority of the starts. So I think it was definitely time to let Aguirre go. And then when it comes to free agents, I am submitting a $15 million qualifying offer to Riggs. I don't expect him to take it, but at least that'll give me a compensation pick. Koopman, though, was a guy I really had some debate with myself on. I still think he's productive. He's, adequate or more than adequate, really, defensively. I think his zone rating is an efficiency. They're okay. It's not great. But the big thing with him is he got injured during the playoffs. He's gone for 3 months. That kind of scares me. I don't want to sign a guy who's in the middle of a long-term injury because I don't know what kind of impact it's going to have on his ratings when he's healthy again. But I do hate to see this guy go. For the last 5 years as a starter, he doesn't give you power, but he gives you a high average, led the league in average back in 2036. His wins above replacement, you can see there, he averages around 3.5, as an average. That's probably getting close to 4 per season. Last year wasn't a great year for him, but he still hit 292. He has some speed, pretty decent run production, and just 30. I think he can go, 31. I think he can go for another 3-4 years, but he's wanting 10 plus million. I just, I would even go 3 years with him had he not gotten injured, and that was kind of what I was prepared to do. I was going to start throwing out some maybe $8-9 million offers and see if he would accept. But I think now with that injury, I'm going to have to look at a different option at second. And the good thing about that is I do think Eubanks is ready to start somewhere. He has great defense at second and short, great speed. OSA likes him a little bit better than my scout, and I'm hoping that that's kind of where he lands. But he actually, with Koopman out in the play, with Koopman out there in the postseason, he took over the starting job and honestly was not bad. Hit 313 in the rest of the World Series, 3 doubles. I think he's worth a look as a starter, and unless somebody comes along next year or in free agency. I also have this guy, of course, Lockhart. I've got him signed for 1 more year, $7.5 million. I would love to trade him away, but no team's going to take this guy. He was, for the most part, kind of a bust, but I think he can at least give us some bench help at third and second, short, really the whole infield. So I think he's at least somewhat valuable. So looking at the way things are right now, Steve Bond is also going to be back, and I'm probably going to let him, play 1 more year. I love his contact and speed. Defense is pretty adequate. But Benefield, this guy has some upside as well. He's great speed, good defender at center field. He looked really good when he was called up in September last season. I think he's eventually going to start. And I think going into next season, it's going to be how well Benefield looks in spring. I might have some kind of platoon situation going for first half of the season. But I think center, right, short, all the infield, I think, is taken care of. And, of course, right now with Norman and Kortang, who I did re-sign as a good backup. He's not good defensively, but a good offensive backup catcher. Signed him for 3 more seasons at just, I guess, average around $3 million. I thought that was a pretty good deal for the kind of player he is. If, I could probably trade him away because catching is usually pretty valuable in the league. But that leaves me with Riggs being the biggest hole, I would say, on this whole team that I'm going to have to fill. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll get to salary arbitration and free agency and see where that leads us. I also want to go through the Hall of Fame voting just to see if there's any guys who are showing up maybe first year who might be worth a look. So we got Hector Acosta his first year, a so-so reliever, but Albies, he wound up with quite a bit of hits, 2,500, scored over 1,200 runs, over 400 stolen bases, 45 wins above replacement. I don't think that puts him. I kind of look at 50 and above as the cutoff there. Altuve, another good player, but in this playthrough, he kind of stumbled once he got around 30 and later. I don't know that he's got the numbers either. Arenado, I'm going to vote this guy in again. He did play for us for a couple years, had some good seasons late in his career and some good seasons away from Colorado. So I'm going to vote for him. Reyes, first year, not too good. Bellinger, in this playthrough, not as good. In the Cincinnati Reds playthrough I did, he was probably one of the best players in the history of the game. I think he wound up. I think Trout and Bellinger passed Bonds for the home run title or in that playthrough, but I don't think he's worth the Hall of Fame in this one. Chris Betts, Bryant Bowen, a catcher, it's first year, so-so player. Mauricio Cabrera, pretty decent closer, but he never won the Reliever of the Year award. Luis Carranza, his first year, had some good years at the start of his career, but then didn't really do much after that. Miguel Castro, he was with the Phillies for a while. Good closer, couple of Reliever of the Year awards. Don't think he's quite Hall of Fame potential. Dave Cochran, his first year, had one Reliever of the Year, but didn't put up total numbers. Rafael Devers, I've been picking this guy. I think his career was solid, over 60 wins above replacement. I think he had a good career. And then Kevin Dowdell, pretty good player here too, 3-time MVP, 70 wins above replacement. I think that's enough. I think the AI is probably going to pick him anyway. Nick Dunn, another guy who was pretty consistent. He drew a lot of walks, had a high on-base percentage for his career, but his other numbers were not that great. Tim Falk, closer, just kind of decent. Juris Familia wound up with 342 saves. That's a pretty high number. Joey Gallo, 573 home runs, but 2,700 strikeouts. Barely hit above 200. Great power hitter though. Jimenez, Zach Green, pretty good career too here. Same deal though. Didn't hit above 250. A lot of home runs, but I don't think he's Hall of Fame worthy. And then we got Bryce Harper. In this playthrough, not as good. In the Reds playthrough, he was up there with Trout and Bellinger as the best players in the game. I'm going to vote for him because I think his numbers are pretty good overall. We got Andy Nowlin, Royce Lewis, injured too much in this playthrough to really have an impact. Seth Lonsway, Yannick Lopez, he won the Cy Young Award once. Had a monster year for Chicago White Sox, 20-1, but didn't have a sustained career. Gavin Lux, a pretty decent player. Nomar Mazara, pretty good output from him. I'm going to vote for him. Austin Meadows, yeah, this guy was pretty good too. I think I'm going to give him some votes. And then Francisco Mejia, good catcher, multiple All-Star Award winner. Austin Murphy, good player too. Never won any major awards though. Then we got Addison Reed, who's getting some good. He finished above 400 saves. That's pretty good for a closer. Man, there's a lot of guys available this year. Addison Russell, pretty decent career, 68 wins above replacement. I think his average though is just too low at 255. And then we got Pavin Smith. Danby Swanson, man, he finished with 2,200 hits. It's pretty good. Chris Wells, a pitcher, and then Christian Yelich, who also had a pretty good career. Man, I don't know if he's Hall of Fame worthy either. I'm going to see how the AI votes for him. So that'll be my choices right there. And then let's go ahead and get on to salary arbitration. That'll give us a better idea of what we're contending with this offseason. And here we go. All right, so Barbarossa did get more, 4.7. Condichera got over 2. That was a little bit of a surprise. Ian Norman, $9 million. Sean Riggs declined my qualifying offer. Gene Warlick, $4 million. So I did keep Sellers as well. I like his defense off the bench. Offense could be a little bit better, but keep him for one more year at $1 million, not too bad. All right, so that's now that leaves us before free agency with not too much. Let's go ahead and see what free agency does to help our bottom line. All right, internationally, let's see. We got some pictures. A left fielder here. I haven't seen much out of this international free agents of late. Pretty good reliever here. Don't show. I don't think I'll need him though. Really good first baseman offensively. Man, he would be a pretty good choice there. Third base, short. And that's about it. That's the only one I'm really seeing. And then there are some left fielders here coming out. Medina is available. Defenses, though, terrible. I think we're set at starting pitcher, so I'm not going to look there. Arturo Boza, man. His offensive numbers are good, but the rest is not so good. Has he won? He's won a lot of All-Star awards, but decent career. But I think he would be a gamble with his injury proneness and his personality ratings. But here we go. Looking at how much room we have available, not much. Just 19 million, not too good at all. And upcoming free agents, we're going to lose Bond, Lockhart. I mean, that's combined. That'll be 14 million. That'll help us next season. But it's not going to help us this year, unfortunately. And then McAvee, big question mark still. He's 5 months away from returning. And I don't know what he's going to look like when he comes back. I have to believe he's going to be good enough to at least replace Contreras in that pitching staff, which would make us really, really good. Even though Parker is starting to show signs, he's slipping. I mean, Thompson, this guy's just now beginning. Even OSA has got him at 3-star with a 5 potential, and they've improved his control rating quite a bit. So I think he's the real deal if he stays healthy. We may have some room in that bullpen, but even though these guys are 3-star, I think their individual ratings and the way they perform is pretty good. I don't know that we're going to need anything there. Bullpen-wise, or minor league-wise, Ings from Thunder Bay, Ontario. This guy could, I think, fill in for injuries as a reliever. He's got good stuff, good control. I think he could, possibly make the team next year. Got a couple of offensive guys here. Is Phil Lobos, who was at Las Vegas last year. This guy he can play all 3 outfield positions. He might be a good bench player in the majors, but a really big hole now is that left field. Unless maybe Bond could play. No, he can't really play left field. So if I look at all the outfielders out there, well, let's just look at all left fielders to start. So we got Medina, who I won't sign. Riggs, he's wanting $34 million. That's crazy. I won't give him that. Esteban Miranda, he's wrecked and not even really a factor defensively. Josh Lowett, he's fragile. I mean, a guy like... Another guy's fragile and his defense is terrible, but this guy, he's fragile as well, but he's been the star with Oakland for the last couple of years. Not great. And then, wow. Not much to choose from, honestly. Magallanes, don't like his personality. Burton Nyman, a guy who I think did he play for us? No, he's been around for a while in this league. He had a pretty decent career, but I think his days of being an impact player are well over. So we're kind of like not really seeing a whole lot free agency that's going to help us in that left field spot, unless I go with one of these guys who well, not this guy, but like Lowett, who's fragile, only so defensively though. And looking at the roster that I have, I mean, I could put Hobbs out there and left as far as that goes. Sellers against righties maybe. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that I could deal with what I've got here. And then in the minors, I got Romero, who can play a few infield positions. Eric Berga, who had a really good year in Lehigh Valley, AAA. He's probably just not going to have much of a career now. He was a former first-round pick, or second-round pick. I thought he was going to develop, but he never really did. So it might be that I'm going to have to work out some trades to get things going. And then pitching, I would stay with what I have right now, pitching-wise. I'd be pretty happy with it, at least for one more year. Some of these guys who are 3-star pitchers, I think they can give me another year, and I'll be good with that, especially with getting McAfee back. And he'll be back. So we're in November. He'll be back around May, somewhere along in there. So what could I do, though, trading-wise? That's a good question. And I think I went through and, adjusted my minors and made all the moves that needed to be made. I think for the most part, our minor league system is, middle of the pack. We're 13th, and that's just because they're counting Thompson. This pitcher here, he's now at Reading, AA. He might develop in a couple years. He was a former second-round pick. He had a good year at Single A last year. And then I've got third baseman Rabolo, who was a minor league contract, a scouting discovery. In his first year in the low A team, short season, South Atlantic League, he had a good season. I think OSA likes him quite a bit better than my scout, but it's going to be interesting to see how he goes. So we've got a few guys there in the minor league farm system that could be impact players, but they're a few years away. So I don't know what I can do to trade. I don't want to lose too much of what I have in terms of trading some of these guys away. Here's a guy. I don't see him being a factor on this team. I don't really have a whole lot of room unless I want to get rid of a starting pitcher, and I don't want to do that right now. So I think what I'm going to do in free agency is look at bench type players that could potentially start if I needed them to. And that's going to be down in these levels right here, 2.5 star to 3 star. Kurt Ogilvie, he can play center and right, but he's wrecked. Dan George, defensively he's not that good. Offensively he's not great, but he would do. Luffman, poor defense. Good offense, though. Brad Pipes can only play right field. And at 2 stars, I don't know. He's not going to be somebody who's going to start. Now, if I got a right fielder, let me see if Warlick. No, he's right only. I didn't know if he could play both left and right. So wow. I think losing Riggs might be tough to overcome. I think it's what it's going to boil down to. But I guess I'll do a lot of these deliberations offline, but that's kind of what I'm going to have to do. That's, I think, the only thing I'm going to have to do. I think the rest of this team is doable, at least for one more season with that pitching staff. I think we could probably get back to the playoffs again next year, but I just need to really pick up that offense or that left field spot a little bit better. I wonder if I could trade him now. This will be the last thing I do here before I move on, but oh man, there's some high guys here like Mike Snyder. 15 million. I mean, would this guy be worth it? He's a lot of strikeouts, good power, adequate defense. And he's it. He's the only one who's really showing up there. I just don't want to pay this guy $15 million in that second year of his contract because I doubt he would be worth that for both seasons. Yeah, I don't think he's worth that money. All right, so that's what I'm up against. I'll go ahead and work on this offline and then probably come back next episode in spring training. And I've kind of, one of the things I've been deciding to with this, I'm looking for some new challenges and looking for some new games even. If you guys have suggestions, you can leave them in the comments section. But I like to stay, as far as my channel goes, I'd like to pick up another sports management game. I know there's a few out there, not as many. Mainly the two biggest ones that I can think of, honestly, are Out of the Park Baseball and Football Manager. And I've played Football Manager before. I've played a few versions of it. I like it, but there's so many other guys with channels of Football Manager who do a much better job than I would do at it. And so I don't really want to do that kind of a game or that game, but there are a few others out there. But if you have any suggestions, let me know. Maybe something non-baseball like football or basketball, hockey, potentially, might even be fun to do. But in terms of this playthrough, I'm at 71, in the game. I think I'm going to give myself to 75, and then I'm going to retire. So unless we maybe get on a run and win the next 2 World Series, maybe that'll do enough to satisfy me. But I think I'm going to stick around to 75, and then I'm calling it quits. And I'll move away from this playthrough and maybe start another challenge type playthrough in Out of the Park Baseball. But I'd like to pick up another game. So if you guys have suggestions, please let me know, and I'll see what I can find. But that'll do it for this episode. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.